Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for tuning in for today's tutorial. I'm so excited because I came up with this pattern for this crochet baby doll dress, and it is so fun, so flowy, and it can be styled for literally any season at all. Once we get to the colder months, I'll probably make a short on how to style it for colder months, but since we are nowhere near that point, thankfully, I'm very excited to style this dress for the spring and summer months, and I can't wait to show you how to make it. It's actually very simple. I know it kind of like maybe to a beginner you would think that it's a little bit trickier, but it's actually not very tricky because there's so much repetition. The bottom part is all the same 2 rows just over and over and over again. It's a shell stitch in the round, and it's very kind of like you can turn your brain off, and it's very relaxing pattern, very relaxing sequence. But I'm going to show you first, before we get into the tutorial part, like the measurements and all of that, just so you kind of know what we're getting into. First of all, the yarn that I'm using for this video is Friends Cotton 8/4, and it's from Hobbii. Pretty much all the yarn I use is from Hobbii. I love Hobbii. In one of my recent videos, I said that I don't use cotton yarn for wearables as much. I usually use it with a blend. And this is a 100% cotton yarn, and I was so wrong. This is probably one of my first times in a long minute crocheting with just cotton, 100% cotton yarn. I've been sleeping on this. It's amazing. I love it so much. And I like the 8/4. They have 8/6 and 8/8, but I like the 8/4 because I usually like having a smaller yarn and then like sizing up the hook just so it's kind of more flowy and drapey. And I sized up my hook size, not too much for this, but we'll get into that in a few minutes. But this is the yarn I used. It's color number 60, and I used, let me check, let me see how much yarn I used. I used approximately 1,500, 1,600 yards of yarn for this, but that's dependent on your size and also how long you want to make it. I made mine from here down, measuring, I think the whole thing, I measured it flat, it's 24 inches. If you want yours to be longer, of course you'll need more yarn, but I used 9 of these, and they're 174 yards each, so about like 1,500. Okay, let's talk measurements. This will ideally be done without a sweatshirt on, so make sure you don't have a sweatshirt on when you're measuring, but you're gonna go underneath your armpits here like this, and you're gonna measure all the way around. Mine says comfortably 35 inches, so we just have to make sure that our chain, or I mean my chain, is like 35 inches, my beginning chain, just so it can fit around. And honestly, I usually do my chain and then I wrap it around just to make sure that it fits, because I have before done the whole measuring only on the measuring tape, and then I go to try it on later and it does not fit me at all. So that's scary. So I usually just size it up on me as I'm going, but if you're a measuring tape person, you can use that. But usually I just make the chain amount, wrap it around, make sure it fits, make sure it comfortably goes, you know, around. So the beginning chain, the only thing with the beginning chain is you cannot just chain however many chains you want. So the top bodice portion is all half double crochet, but the bottom part is the shell stitch, and the shell stitch requires that you chain or have a multiple of 6. So you just need to make sure that your beginning chain amount that wraps around here, just make sure that it is a multiple of 6. Now for me, I chained 138, and you might need to chain more or less depending on your measurement, but I chained 138, which is a multiple of 6. So the next thing you need to figure out is how many inches you want your bodice section to be. So for me, I measured kind of like underneath my armpit here, and I went down here. I didn't want it to go all the way underneath my bust, but if you want yours to, totally up to you. If you want to have even just like a tiny top portion, bodice section that doesn't even go over your chest, totally up to you. I wanted mine to be 6.5 inches. So I wanted my bust portion to be 6.5 inches. So I did around 5.5 inches just of 1 half double crochet in every stitch all the way around, making sure that I still had the 138 38 chains. If you have to go back and count after the first row, I honestly would recommend it, because just to make sure, you want to make sure that you have a multiple of, make sure you have the multiple of 6. So I did check and make sure, I recounted just to be sure, because I wanted to be sure. I'm usually a big checker. So I went ahead and did 5.5 inches of 1/2 double crochet in every row, which was 1 inch less. So if you want to have 3 inches for your bodice portion, then you will go do 2 inches of just 1/2 double crochet in every stitch. So just 1 inch less than your desired measurement here, because then in the last 4 rows, which is about 1 inch, you will do increasing. So you have 4 rows left. For the first row of your 4 rows left, you are going to increase in every other stitch, okay? And once you increase in every other stitch, you are not going to have a multiple of 6, which is a problem because we're going to be going into the shell stitch. So when you increase in every other stitch all the way around, you're still not going to have a multiple of 6. So that's our first row. Of our last 4 rows. The first row, we're going to increase in every other stitch. The next row, we're going to not increase, we're just going to put 1/2 double crochet in every stitch. And then in the next row, we're going to increase in every third, which then brings us to a multiple of 6. So then in the 4th row, we're not going to increase at all in any of the stitches, we're just going to go 1/2 double crochet in every stitch. So I'll explain that all more as we get on with it, but when you increase in every other stitch, it's not a multiple of 6. So then you have to do 1/2 double crochet in every stitch all the way around for the next row, and then the next row after that you have to increase in every third to then bring you back to a multiple of 6 to prepare us for our shell rows. And then your last row of your final row for the bodice will be just 1/2 double crochet in every stitch. And again, I will go through that all again later on, but I just wanted to run through it really fast with you guys. And then for the shell stitch, it is just a repeat of rows 2 and 3 over and over and over and over and over again for however long you want your dress to be. So that is the quick rundown. Now let's go ahead and get into the tutorial. I am using a 4.5 millimeter hook. My yarn recommends a 3.5, but I'm just going up by 1. So I'm going to start by making a slip knot. And then I'm going to chain an amount that is a multiple of 6, and I explain in the beginning of the video what measurements to take for this part, so if you skip through that part, make sure to go back and watch that portion of the video. So I'm making a chain of 138, and that reaches all the way around underneath my armpits above my chest. Now I'm just going to run my thumb down my chains to make sure that it is not twisted at all. So we can go ahead and slip stitch into the first chain that we made to connect them together. And then I'm going to go ahead and chain 1. And then in that same stitch that the chain 1 is in, I'm going to put 1/2 double crochet. And then in every single chain all the way around, I'm going to put 1/2 double crochet. So by the end of the row, I should have 138 half double crochets, and you should have however many half double crochets of the amount of your original chain. So I'm just going to go ahead and put 1/2 double crochet in every single chain all the way around until I reach the beginning of this row. And now that I've reached the beginning, I'm just going to slip stitch in the first half double crochet that I made. Then I'm going to go ahead and chain 1 and turn my work. You want to make sure to turn your work so your seam is nice and straight. And then I'm just going to half double crochet in that same stitch as the chain 1, because the chain 1 does not count as a half double crochet. And then I'm just going to go all the way around, putting 1/2 double crochet in every stitch, just repeating the exact same thing. And we're going to be repeating row 2 for however long it takes to reach, remember how I talked about in the beginning again about our bodice, the bodice portion. So I'm just going to do this same exact pattern of putting 1/2 double crochet in every stitch, slip stitching into the first half double crochet of the row, Then I'm going to go ahead and chain 1, turn my work, and in that same chain 1 space, because it doesn't count as a half double crochet, I'm going to put 1 half double crochet in that space and then in all the stitches all the way around. So I'm just going to repeat this, and for me I'm going to repeat the same thing for, I'm not sure how many rows exactly, but it was 5.5 inches for me. So I'm just going to go ahead and repeat this same thing for until it reaches 5.5 inches. And then we're going to do some increasing. So you can go ahead and put 1 half double crochet in every stitch all the way around. Just repeat this row 2 until you reach the length that you need. And then at the end of the row, see, we're just slip stitching into the first half double crochet that we made. Then we're chaining 1, turning our work so our seam is straight, putting 1 half double crochet in that same exact stitch that the chain 1 is in, and then 1 half double crochet in every stitch all the way around, and then just repeating this for however many inches that you need for your bust portion of this dress. Now I've reached 5.5 inches, which is about an inch less than I need. So for this final inch and the final 4 rows, which is about an inch, 4 rows equals about an inch, I'm going to do some increasing. So now I'm just reattaching my yarn here, and I'm slip stitching into the first half double crochet of the row, just like I've been doing for these 5.5 inches. And now I'm just chaining 1, turning my work, and then in that same stitch that the chain 1 is in, I'm putting 1 half double crochet that counts as our first half double crochet of the row, and then in the next stitch I'm going to do an increase, which is 2 half double crochets in 1 stitch. And then in the next stitch I'm just going to put 1 half double crochet, and then in the next stitch I'm going to put 2 half double crochets for an increase, and then in the next stitch I'm going to put 1 half double crochet. And basically what we're doing is increasing in every other stitch. So this stitch just gets 1, the next gets 2, the next gets 1, the next gets 2, and so on and so forth until you reach all the way around. And then once you reach the beginning of the row, you're just going to slip stitch in the first half double crochet that you made. Then you're going to chain 1, turn your work, and in that same stitch put 1 half double crochet. And then in every single stitch you're just going to put 1 half double crochet, no increasing at all. So the previous row we did increasing in every other stitch, and in this row we are not going to increase at all. And then once you reach the beginning, you're going to again slip stitch into the first half double crochet that you made, and then you're going to chain 1, and in that same turn your work, and in that same stitch put 1 half double crochet, which counts as our first half double crochet, put 1 half double crochet in the next stitch, and then in that third stitch we are going to go ahead and increase again by putting 2 half double crochets in 1 stitch. Then in the next stitch we're going to go ahead and put 1 half double crochet, and the next stitch we're putting 1 half double crochet, and then again in that third stitch we are going to put 2 half double crochets. So for this row we are increasing in every third stitch. So 1, 2, and then in that third stitch we are going to increase by putting 2 half double crochets in 1 stitch. So I'm just going to go ahead and repeat this all the way around by increasing in every third stitch, just putting 2 half double crochets in every third stitch. And then like we talked about in the beginning of the video, when we increased in every other stitch, that wasn't a multiple of 6, which is a problem when we get to our shell stitches because they need a multiple of 6. So then we fix it by increasing in every third stitch, which then brings you to a multiple of 6, which is perfect and exactly what we need. Once you reach the beginning of the row, you're just going to slip stitch into the first half double crochet that you made. Then you're going to chain 1, turn your work, And then I'm just going to go ahead and do one more row of 1 half double crochet in every single stitch all the way around, and that will conclude our bodice bust portion. So just 1 half double crochet in every stitch, just repeating the exact same thing that I did for the first 5.5 inches of my bust. Just 1 half double crochet in every stitch for the final row of my bust. And then once I reach the beginning, I'm just going to slip stitch in that first half double crochet that I made. Then I'm going to chain 1, turn my work, and now we're going to start our shell stitches. In that same stitch that the chain 1 is in, I'm going to go ahead and put 1 single crochet, not a half double crochet, 1 single crochet. And then I'm going to go ahead and skip 2 stitches, go into the third with 5 double crochets. Then I'm going to go ahead and skip 2 stitches again, go into the third with 1 single crochet. There we have a little scallop or a little shell. Then I'm going to go ahead and skip 2 stitches again, go into the third with 5 double crochets again, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then I'm going to skip 2 stitches, go into the third with 1 single crochet, skip 2, go into the third with 5 double crochets, and then we're just going to be repeating this sequence all the way around. Then once you're done with your 5 double crochets, you're going to skip 2, put 1 single crochet in the third, then you're going to skip 2 stitches, go into the third with 5 double crochets, and just keep on repeating this all the way around. So now I'm putting my 5 double crochets in this stitch, then I'm going to skip 2, put 1 single crochet in the third, then I'm going to skip 2 stitches again and put 5 double crochets in the third stitch, skip 2 stitches, put 1 single crochet in the third, and so on and so forth all the way around. And now I've reached the beginning. As you can see, I have my first single crochet there. I'm just going to go ahead and slip stitch into that single crochet, that first single crochet that we made of the row. And then I'm going to go ahead and chain 1, and then in that same stitch I'm going to put 3 double crochets, which it's not quite a half, but you can't really half 5, so I'm just putting kind of like kind of a half of a shell here, and then we're going to finish it once we reach all the way around. So I'm just going to put 3 half double crochets in this stitch here, and we'll finish it once we reach all the way around, don't worry, we'll add the other 2. And then I'm going to go ahead and skip 2 stitches, go into the third with 1 single crochet, then I'm going to skip 2 stitches and go into the previous row's single crochet here with my 5 double crochets. So how the rest of the rows work is we're going to be putting in the previous row's single crochet, that's where we're going to put our 5 double crochets. And then on the peak of the shell of the previous row, we are going to put our single crochet. So we're skipping 2 stitches, and then right in the top middle double crochet there of that shell from the previous row, we're putting 1 single crochet, skipping 2, and then in that previous row single crochet, we're always going to be putting our 5 double crochets or our shells. And then we're going to skip 2 stitches, go into the third with our single crochet, and just repeating that exact same process. See here we have our 5 double crochets for our shell from the previous row, and in that middle one there we're going to be putting our single crochet. And then I'm just going to be putting now my 5 double crochets in that previous row's single crochets, and so on and so forth, all the way around. And then I'm going to skip 2 stitches, go into the third with my single crochet, skip 2, go into the third or the previous row's single crochet, and put 5 double crochets for our shell. And just keep on going all the way around for row 2. After my shell, I'm skipping 2 stitches, going into the third with 1 single crochet. Then I'm going to skip 2 stitches, go into the third with my 5 double crochet cluster. And then I'm going to be skipping 2 again, and just keep on going, doing the exact same thing. And this is row 2 of our shells. And now we've reached the beginning, our little half of our shell stitch. So then we're going to go in that same stitch. As you can see, it's a little bit tricky to get into at first, but you get used to it by the time you're done with your dress. You're going to go in that same stitch that those 3 double crochets are in, and you're going to complete it by putting 2 more double crochets. So in total, you now have 5. And then in the top of the first double crochet that you made of the row, you're going to put 1 single crochet to start the third row. So this is row 3, and you're just putting 1 single crochet at the top, because that is how our sequence goes. You put 1 single crochet at the top of the previous row's cluster, and then I put in my stitch marker so it's easy to see. Then I skipped 2 stitches, went into the third or the previous row's single crochet, and I'm putting my 5 double crochets for my first cluster of this row. And then I'm going to go ahead and skip 2 stitches, go into the third with my single crochet, skip 2 stitches, go into the third with my 5 double crochets for my next shell. And then I'm going to skip 2 stitches, go into the third with 1 single crochet, skip 2 stitches, go into the third with my 5 double crochets, and again we're just repeating this all the way around until we get to the beginning of the row. And rows 2 and 3 are the repeat rows, so we're on row 3 right now, and the row before this one and now the current one that we are on are the repeat rows. So we're just going to be repeating rows 2 and 3 until you get to however long you want your dress to be. It is literally that simple, just a repeat of these 2 rows. The sequence is all the same. The only thing that changes is the beginning and the end of the rows, and I'll explain that. So we are reaching the end of row 3. We've reached our stitch marker here, as you can see, which it's in a single crochet. So I'm just going to pop that out, and we're going to go ahead and slip stitch into that single crochet. And what do we always do in the single crochets? What we always do in the single crochets is put our cluster. So what we're going to do is chain 1, and then in that same stitch we're going to put our, remember in row 2 how we put our half of our cluster? We're going to go ahead and do that exact same thing by putting 3 double crochets, or a kind of a half of a cluster, in this same stitch. And then we're going to skip 2 stitches, go into the third with 1 single crochet, skip 2 stitches, go into the third, which is our previous row single crochet, and put 5 double crochets, because in the single crochets always our clusters go into the single crochets of the previous row. We always put our 5 double crochets into that cluster, and then always at the top middle of our shells we put our single crochet. And then we skip 2 stitches, go into the single crochet from the previous row, and put our 5 double crochets, just repeating that sequence all the way around. So we're now repeating exactly what we did in row 2. Since rows 2 and 3 are just a repeat of each other all the way down, however many rows you need. So I'm just going to go ahead and repeat row 2 for row 4 until I get to the beginning of my row. So now I've reached the beginning of the row, and as you can see we have our 3 double crochets, and we want to finish that cluster. So in that same stitch that we put those 3 double crochets in, we're going to finish that cluster by putting 2 more, so we have 5. So as you can see here, we have our shell, and we always, in the middle of our shell, we put a single crochet. So that's exactly what I'm going to do here. In that first double crochet that we made of the row, I'm going to put 1 single crochet, because always in the middle double crochet of our shells, we put 1 single crochet always. So I'm just going to go ahead and put my stitch marker in there, so I know where that stitch is because it likes to hide. And then I'm going to skip 2 stitches, go into the third, which is our previous row's single crochet, and put my 5 double crochet shell, because always the single crochets get the 5 double crochets. And then I'm going to skip 2 stitches, put a single crochet in the third, skip 2 stitches, put 5 double crochets in that previous row's single crochet, and just repeat our exact same sequence all the way around for row 5. So we're just repeating row 3. Now for row 5, we're just repeating row 3, since it is a 2-row repeat of just rows 2 and 3. So you just do row 2, row 3, row 2, row 3 for however long you need. And then once you reach your stitch marker, you're just going to go ahead and pop that out and slip stitch into that first single crochet. And remember, what do we always add to our single crochets? We add our clusters. So I'm just going to go ahead and chain 1, put my half of a cluster or my 3 double crochets into that same stitch, and then we'll finish it once we get back around. And then I'm going to skip 2 stitches, go into the third with 1 single crochet, skip 2 stitches, go into the third with my 5 double crochet cluster, just going into that previous row single crochet with my 5 double crochets. And then I'm going to go ahead and skip 2 stitches again, go into the third with 1 single crochet, and repeat our sequence all over again. So now I'm just going to keep on repeating rows 2 and 3 until I get however long I want my dress to be. So you can go ahead, I'll have chapters put up for rows 2 and 3 so you can know what the repeat rows are, and you can just rewatch those if you need to. But again, I'm just going to repeat rows 2 and 3, following the same exact sequence for the entirety of my dress. And you can go as long as you want or as short as you want. You could potentially even make this just a top, like a shirt, like a baby doll top. Whatever you want to do, you go ahead and make however many rows that you would like to. And then once I'm done with the length of my dress, I'm going to switch over to a 4mm hook, and I'm going to attach my yarn in the back seam area of the top bodice portion. As you can see, we're at the top where we have all our half double crochet rows. I'm going to attach my yarn somewhere in the back there, and in that same stitch that I attached my yarn in, I'm going to insert my hook, and I'm going to pull up a loop and chain 1, and in that same stitch there that the chain 1 is in, I'm going to put 1 single crochet, and then 1 single crochet in every single stitch all the way around, just to make this edge a little cleaner, because this edge is, remember how we put our half double crochets in our beginning chain, the 2 loops, the extra 2 loops of the chain, it doesn't look as clean as a single crochet border would. So I'm just going ahead in every single stitch and putting 1 single crochet all the way around, just to make that edge nice and clean. So as you can see up close, I'm just going under those 2 extra loops of the chain, just going right under those and putting my single crochet, just like that. And then once I reach the beginning single crochet, I'm just going to slip stitch into the first single crochet, then I'm going to chain 1, cut my yarn, and my border is complete. And then to figure out where I want my straps to be, I'm just trying on my dress here, and I'm attaching stitch markers roughly where I want my straps to be, but just make sure that your back seam there, as you can see, it's like right in the middle. Just make sure that's somewhat in the middle. It doesn't have to be perfectly in the middle, just make sure it's in the middle so you attach your straps on either side of that seam. So I'm just measuring here, and mine's about like 8 inches on each side. So I'm just making sure that it's somewhat even. It doesn't have to be perfectly even, but I'm just kind of making sure that the back seam on each side of the back seam here is relatively the same amount of inches. It doesn't have to be perfect, again, just make sure it's somewhat close. So now I'm measuring here about 3 1/4 inches. I put my stitch markers in on either side. And of course they're all messed up and wonky, just because eyeballing it is not always the way to go. So I'm just measuring here that 3 1/4 inches on either side. I put my stitch markers to attach my straps, and that worked out perfectly for me. So next what I'm going to do is I'm going to count the stitches, starting with the stitch that the stitch marker is in, and then going to the next stitch the stitch marker is in, counting that stitch as well, and making sure that I personally have 30 stitches. And then I'm going to do the exact same thing on the other side, starting from the first stitch marker, counting that as the first stitch, and then counting all the way around to the next stitch marker on the other side, making sure that I have 30 stitches as well, just so they're both even. And then I'm going to count the stitches in between the stitch markers, so not counting the stitches that the stitch marker is in, because then that would be counting extra stitches, just to make sure that everything is even. So I have 30 on each side, so that's 60, and then in between the stitch markers, I have 39 stitches in the middle of the back and front. So 39 each, plus the 30 on each side, so the 30 here, and then the 30 here, plus the 39 in the front and back, would equal 138 stitches, which makes everything perfect and even, because 138 was the amount of our beginning chain. Now for the straps, I'm grabbing my 3.5 millimeter hook, and I'm going to join my yarn in that same stitch that stitch marker is in. So I'm just doing the left side straps here. So I'm just joining my yarn and tying it on twice to make sure it's nice and secure. And then I'm going to insert my hook into that stitch, and then I'm going to pull up a loop and start making very tight chains. So don't make them loose, make them nice and tight. And however many chains you make is very dependent upon your personal measurements. Now I made 90 chains, but kind of like halfway through my amount of chains, I actually put on the dress so I could kind of pull the strap back to see, like measuring on my body and like attaching it kind of towards the back portion right by that stitch marker on the other side, kind of like pulling it and seeing if I needed to add more, if I needed to take away more. I actually chained 100 originally, and it seemed to be like it was too long, so I took away 10 and made 90 chains, which was perfect. And see, at this point the dress is on me, and then I'm just bringing that strap back behind me to the stitch marker on the other side to just see if it fits exactly the way that I want it. So now here, once I have my 90 chains, I'm just making sure that my chain is not twisted at all, and then I'm just going to pull out the stitch marker on the opposite side, and I'm going to slip stitch these 90 chains and attach it to the other side. And then I'm going to go ahead and chain one, cut my yarn, pull out my hook and tighten it, and there I have my strap, my first strap done for my dress. And again, however many you chain is dependent upon your size, so make sure that you put it on, pull it back to make sure that it fits and everything like that. So now I'm just going to go ahead and do the exact same thing on the other side, attaching my yarn, tying it nice and tight to make sure it's secure, and then I'm going to do my 90 chains, my 90 very tight chains, and I'm going to do a close-up in just a second here to show you just how tight they are. So just repeat the exact same thing for the other side straps. And here I am just blocking my dress, and I got so many requests to do a blocking tutorial, but my son happened to wake up at the exact same time as this, as my blocking, so I did not have time to do a tutorial, but I promise you I will do one in the next video I promise you. And here is the finished dress. I hope you guys absolutely love this tutorial, and if you did, don't forget to like and subscribe for more, and I will see you in the next video. Bye guys!